on the cap of the Arabian Peninsula in Oman, right near the Yemeni border. And this is the best candidate for Nephi's Bountiful. But as we've looked around the last few days, we see lots and lots of archaeological evidences. Is this all from Nephi's family, or is that possible?
It's really not possible for a small family, extended family of maybe up to 30, 40 people, to construct this large area and all the work that would go into it. So essentially we have other people that have been here in the past and a much larger village-sized complex that could do this.
So what kind of things are we seeing here? I mean, we see off here a large mound of some kind. Just give us a little sense, a list of things that you're noticing as an archaeologist.
Well, basically the biggest thing that jumps out at you is the big mound complex and the walls associated with it, which may or may not be defensive. And then as you go up in the talus area where the foothill starts, you start seeing evidences of other walls and terraces for agriculture as well as for occupation evidences. So like a village was here, including they had a corral for animals. But essentially that's different from a small family, extended family coming into this area, and they probably are not at the same time.
So if Nephi and Lehi and Sariah and the family are here for, say, 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years at the max, but 2 or 3 years, and their main responsibility is building a ship, what kind of evidences would they leave behind? As an archaeologist, what could you be looking for in that short of occupation?
Well, basically, that short an occupation, you could still find, if you're lucky, if you look carefully and know where essentially they might have their occupation they live, you could find the carbon from their fires and date that. You might find ceramic pottery evidences there also that could be associated with that. They would also have their own little unique ceremonial center and ceremonial site where they would pray and read the scriptures and have their sacrifices. And that should be right here apparent on the surface, because this whole surface area is very unique. There's been very little soil buildup on the surface since thousands of years, and therefore it's possible to find their ceremonial area.
So let's just speculate for a minute. Because we can do that. We're just talking back and forth here in Oman. If this family were here and they realized that they had this ship built and they were going to sail off on these great waters and they're sailing off to the promised land and they don't know where this is, they just know it's away from the place they've known their whole life and for generations before that, would they leave anything behind? Would they leave anything for us to find?
Well, that's an excellent question, Scott, because they were very well aware that their whole journey was a record that would later come forth to mankind. They were aware of that even before I think they started the process out of Jerusalem. And therefore, being aware of that, they would leave something behind, I believe. If it were me, if I were Lehi and I came into this area and I'd completed a ship and it was riding out there on the blue, and I was sending my people out in little boats to finish loading it off, essentially I would place a cache here. Putting inscriptions in the cliff is good, you know, writing in the cliff and leaving a message, but the problem is that the faces exfoliate, the edges of the rock break off and fall away, or you have limestone water running down over it, carrying quantities of limestone. So that's not a very good place. So if I were thinking I would want to leave a message for mankind somewhere in the far future, long after Jehovah had come the first time, I would basically make a cache, so that would come out of the earth as the Book of Mormon later comes out of the earth as voices from the dust. And I would put in that cache certain things that showed who I was and where I was coming from, maybe some pottery just to show or something like that. But I would also put in an inscription. I would put in something And I would put in my most basic understanding of who I was and why I was on this very, very difficult and dangerous trek. And I'd start with I Lehi or I Nephi. And I'd put in a statement there for somebody in the future that I knew would ultimately come back, so that those voices would come as a testimony of our work and our being.
So let's speculate a little further. Since we're just here looking around for more than a week, every day we're just looking at archaeological evidences. Where would we look for a cache like that, in your estimation? Where are we going to find something? Where would they logically place this so that it could be there for that future generation to find?
Well, one excellent place to look would be their ceremonial center, if you can identify what that would be, because that'd be a natural place to put a sacred cache. Another place would be to put in a cave where it'd be safe. We know that the records later on in the Book of Mormon that Mormon deposits and that he receives are coming out of caves where they're protected. So there are many caves here in the limestone, so essentially there are many, many options to look for.
So that's where we are at this point in Nephi's Bountiful, the best candidate for Nephi's Bountiful here in Oman.